Hey, you filthy scum. I'm Vulture Culture. In tonight's live stream, we're going to be answering the question, is the Formanta Polivoks from 1982 the best synthesizer for making cyberpunk music? Cyberpunk 2077 came out, the video game that sort of inspired the name for the modern genre, although, of course, the genre dates all the way back to the 1983 book, Neuromancer by William Gibson. But the composers for the game, Cyberpunk 2077, actually used a Polivoks. And what makes this synthesizer so special is it was made in Soviet Russia under the Iron Fist, and it's completely in Cyrillic, so you have to familiarize yourself with a synthesizer in a different language, unless, of course, you happen to be Russian. It's a really wonderful sounding mono synthesizer. One of my favorites. I'm never selling it, even though I know Miss FD, you want it really bad. I will not sell this thing. It's just really great. And super excited for tonight. So the way the stream's going to go, we just checked out a demo song I made, and that was all of the synth parts were from the Polivoks, and then I just added some choirs from Museo by Cinesamples. My affiliate link is in the description. But we're going to go through and talk about the Polivoks first, and then we will make ourselves a brand new cyberpunk track together using only this synth and some drums. So, yes, Tetris and a vodka shot would be the trifecta, wouldn't it? So let's go ahead and talk about this synthesizer. So the first thing I needed to do is actually just turn off the effects. Here we go. So let's drop this all the way down, turn the resonance off. Make sure my modulation is down. Okay, so let's see. Let me catch up with the chat here. Yes, there is a VST version of the Polivoks. There's also a lot of really cool Polivoks stuff in Eurorack. The only problem with it is, like, for instance, I think Erica Synth makes a Eurorack pre-made kit sort of thing. You can still disassemble the modules or whatever, but based off the Polivoks, it costs more than a real Polivoks. You can get one of these bad boys for usually about $1,200 right now. And that's actually not that bad. You just got to make sure that it's still there. Georgie, I don't believe you could still get parts from Vladimir Kuzmin, who's the designer of the Polivoks, but they are very repairable. I use the Synthesizer Tech Severed machines. He actually specializes in Polivoks, so that's worth checking out. But yes, the knobs have this wonderful click, heavy click to them. Everything about the synth is like overbuilt. It is plastic, but it feels like a tank, and very tough, very masculine synthesizer in feel and in sound. So let's discuss the Sawtooth Wave. So the first thing about this synth to know is that if you have the oscillators about halfway, that's relatively clean, but we can really overdrive the synth by pushing quite a lot of oscillator into the filter. And that's sort of the Polivoks sound. I mean, it's just like an inherently dirty sounding synth. Hello. No, they are not pieces of crap that need to be repaired. They're actually, unlike modern synthesizers, vintage synths were made to be repaired. So they are very easy to repair. Whereas if you have a problem with a modern synth, a lot of times you just have to chuck the whole thing. And these are, relatively speaking, easy to repair. I myself am not a synth tech, but it did not cost me much to get this one brought up to spick-spackle shape. I don't know if spick-spackle is a word. Yes, Vladimir is working with Behringer to recreate the Polivoks. So that's very exciting. I'd be very excited. Unlike a lot of Behringer controversy, I think the idea of bringing the Polivoks back with the original creator is super cool. So immediately you'll just notice that the sawtooth of this synth is one of the best I've ever heard. It's just full, bright, buzzy, has plenty of weight at the low end, but plenty of up here. It's got that warm, glowy, fuzzy analog thing. And of course, we could bring in a second oscillator. So here's our mixer section down here. So Ria Top is oscillator. So we got Ria Top 2. We can control the fine tune with Patched Tonka. So if we want to have like a nice tight Moogie. That sort of Moog lead sound. I mean, with those two sawtooths, you almost don't even worry about the filter. It just sounds so good, right? Bliskin, if I could compare the Behringer Polivoks to the original, I think that would be fun, for sure. And I'm not against Behringer. I myself choose not to buy their synths, but I also don't buy modern synths, period, right? So I also don't have any like modern sequential stuff, and I think that company's great. So I don't want to make this all about Behringer like sometimes the chat devolves into. But yeah, it's a wonderful sound. It absolutely feels like a mini Moog, but it has a few tricks up its sleeve that a mini Moog doesn't. For instance, if we take it from 1 Ron to 2 Rons, we can now play duophonically. Right? Which you can't do on a mini Moog. So that's something to think about when it comes to buying this synth versus, say, a Moog, a vintage Moog, or even a modern Moog. For about $1,200, this is a pretty incredible. So it sounds great. That's almost incontrovertible. While we're here in the oscillator section, we can just cover the other waves that we have. We have a triangle wave. Whim is noise. So we could make fluty type sounds if we wanted. We also have a square. We have 3 duty cycles of square wave. So we've got regular square wave. We've got a thinner one. Wonderful pulse. Everything about this synth sounds so good. Kind of Game Boy down there, up high. Just beautiful. And then we can go to a very narrow pulse. That square wave just sounds incredibly thick. So why don't we check out... So if we wanted to have like a really brutal bassline sound, absolutely massive. We'll start with the sawtooth wave because I'll hit that filter, David. But I want you to keep in mind that that square wave pushes even more bass. So the difference here sounds good, but if we go to square, it's really good. I would love for someone to take this layout. It's actually one of the best layouts of all the synths that I have. You have the modulator up here, moderner top. A moderner top. I don't know. That's up here. We've got our oscillators. We can do cross mod, of course. Which is a thing you can do if you wanted. We can control the pitch with the modulator independently. So we could have vibrato on one or both of the oscillators. And everything is really great in the sense that it's a, how do I say it? Like everything's variable control, more or less. The only thing that's not is the pulse width up here, right? But what are you going to do? So now let's get into the filter section. So the very first thing, Hans Volt, welcome to the stream. Look at that gold vulture skull next to your name. I love to see it. Binaural Odyssey, bust that motherfucker out. So one of the things you might notice is even with the resonance, which is this PO hack, this means resonance. With it all the way down, there's still like a resonancy sort of character to it. Like a vowel-y sort of thing. Hans, how do you think your Polivoks compares to your other vintage Soviet synths? Because I know you've got, what do you have, an Alita? So you'll notice it like half resonance here. It's not that much different, right? I'll do a sweep with no resonance and then one with half. Not a huge difference. Up to 4. Right? You can hear that. If I bring it up to 5... I actually don't know the answer to that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had. So you could hear at 5, it's pretty crazy. And then past that, I have to be very careful. So right about there is right before we start entering whale territory. So we'll do one more sweep here. The dirtiness, Sean, is just insane. I mean, listen to that. Audio rate modulation. So this is one of the only synthesizers, and I'd love to actually hear it versus a 303. I don't think I'll ever own a 303 because the acid thing's not my thing necessarily. But Tom, welcome to the stream. This synth does not require a distortion pedal to get that acid sort of thing, you know? So if we use a little envelope here. Yeah, it is actually a lot like the ARP Odyssey Pliskin because we have these loopable envelopes. So if I put this into a loopable mode, you can see it's like a standard envelope shape here, and then there's like a double. You can see that on the stream. You'll hear what that sounds like. Every time it finishes, it will start again. So we can actually create all sorts of cool sort of sounds with this. If we wanted to make like a pluck, we could do it with this, and we do have an external trigger, which I think we can trigger it with. Yeah, just incredible, right? Tripwell, it is an incredible synth, and it's in wonderful shape. I've had it restored by Severed Machines. If you have a Polivoks and you can ship it to Severed Machines, he specializes in these, and he does do mods as well to help with the resonance. I don't really mind the resonance being crazy, but it would be nice to have it tapered slightly. So we could do this two-stage envelope thing. We can also do it with the amplifier, so that can be interesting as well. This whole time we've been listening to the low-pass filter, but we actually have a bandpass as well. Yeah, so how stable is the tuning? This tuning is ridiculously stable on this synthesizer. So unlike my Moog Source, which I am constantly chasing the tuning on, same thing with the Korg Monopoly, which is part of the fun with the Monopoly because it's easy to tune. On the Source, not so much because you have to go like inside the synth to adjust some of the tuning. You can set the bass tuning on the back of the synth, but the scaling is different. It's, like it's not perfect, right? On this synth, rock fucking solid, which is wonderful. I haven't tried actually running this into the Chorus Echo. That would be a lot of fun. Tripwell requests a Reese, so a Reese you shall have. So we can actually use the envelope as an LFO, right? So we set them both to 3. So it's kind of fun to actually be able to do a bandpass Reese as opposed to just always being stuck in the land of low-pass filters. If we want the low end, let's go ahead and put it back into low pass mode, and now we'll get the... Oh wait, did I... There we go. It's interesting, when in bandpass mode, we can actually emphasize the low end more with the resonance crank. Teosophy, welcome to the stream. Yes, I do. This has been converted to it's converted to US internally. Where did my synth go? Oh no. Where is she? I don't know what that was. This could totally do sci-fi horror. How's it going, Chris? Welcome to the stream. Actually finding I'm using the bandpass filters quite useful. For this sort of like cyberpunk bassline sound. More cat sounds. Meow meow. Yo, can I get some scum cheers for a double IPA in Micah Hearn's hands? Okay, so it would be easy to get lost in this all day. One more thing to talk about here. So I'm going to turn the envelope off. So even with the resonance all the way down, there is this like throaty character to it. And when we did the shootout, the MS-20 just sounds so good, so it's kind of hard to compare them, but I just have a fondness for this synth. I think arguably you could say the MS-20 is the better synth to buy in the mid $1,500 monosynth range. I personally enjoy interacting with the synth a lot. Maybe it's because it doesn't have the patch cables that I got to keep clean, but I don't know. Let's use the modulator. We can move it into square wave mode. We have noise mode, which is fucking useless. I wish I could say it has a use. It's weird because it adds noise to the filter path. I mean, I guess it's maybe someone would just like it because it's different, right? But it's not really modulating the filter in any useful way. Then we have, most importantly, we have sample and hold, which is super cool. We do have a noise source parb, so we could turn that on. But we could also use that noise source as a modulation source that's not sample and hold. And that, to me, is kind of pointless, unfortunately. If Ambient Knots can use it in a song, then I might have to retract my statement on the noise source. And of course we can take it into the audio rate range, so might be just shy of audio rate, isn't it? I'm trying to get to audio rate using the looping ADSR. Not that I'm aware of, Hans Volt. I don't mind the key bed. Yeah, it's a little plasticky, but it's fine. I don't have an issue with it. There's only a couple of synths. I don't love the key bed on the SQ80 and the DW8000. I suppose this one's probably in that category too, but I don't find it as clacky. It's just plasticky, but it's not bad. Noise source is cool. We do also have an external input, so you could route drums or your vocals through this thing if you wanted. But I don't have anything hooked up right now. I've done a stream where we ran Kwai K1 through this. Nothing clacks better than an Insonic. I want to say, doesn't one of the vintage Soviet synths have a phaser built in, or am I confusing it with something else? I'm thinking of like the RITM, RITM. Hans Volt would know. Yeah, we're getting into some serious whale screaming cat territory. So let's turn the filter all the way open. And now I'm using a pulse wave. Yeah, I guess the modulator towards the oscillators is fast. How would we describe this sound? Actually sounds pretty cool with like a medium amount of that. Let's add some cross modulation. That kind of takes it, for whatever reason. What is that? 1 octave below. What are my opinions on vocals in cyberpunk music? I like them. Something I forgot to mention about the filter is under the hood, a lot of synths will have key tracking for the filter. It's actually wired like that under the hood. So this synth is always key tracking. And in fact, in the intro that we did for this, I actually wanted to play it up here, and I programmed the sound for that. Then realized it would look better on camera if I played it down here, right? It's more central to the camera. But when I did that, I had to redo all the filter settings because down here, the filter behaves differently than it does up here. And that's independent of these range controls here. I don't know who the best cyberpunk artists are, but I would say my personal favorite would be 1788-L. I think they're putting out the coolest mid-tempo cyberpunk stuff. Taryn, welcome to the stream. How's it going? You played with one of these bad boys over at the Vintage Synth Museum? Or do you have one? Yeah, this synth just immediately takes us into pretty wretched territory. How's it going? I'm a guy. Yeah. How's it going, Tracy Harms? Aquatic, I agree. I mean, that's the reason why I sort of recommend the MS-20 over this. If you had to buy only one vintage monosynth, it's probably the MS-20, just because of the patch bay possibilities. And also, it can sound brutal, but this sounds more brutal to the point where it's hard to get it to sound clean. Although I suppose like we could, right? We just turn the resonance mostly down or some amount down. Let's jump over into Filterverse for a bit. So if you guys want to use my affiliate link down below, that's super cool, but don't worry about it if not. This isn't a sponsored stream. I just really like Filterverse. So I'm going to initialize this. So it's not doing anything at the moment. What we're going to do, I'm going to initialize it. Kind of, some of the graphics seem a little wonky. Not noticing it doing anything. That's odd. Let me just reload it. I don't know if maybe I like messed it up when I messed around with some of the settings. So let's just go ahead and remove that and load in Filterverse, one of my favorite plugins. Try to shout it out because it is a really cool plugin. So here we go. I think you guys can see that. What's going on with this? This is a beta version. Do I have some? Oh, do I have it like? Oh, here we go. There we go. Thank God. That was the problem. Was me, not the other way around. So we're going to initialize it, right? I'm going to turn the presets off. I don't need them. Thank God it was me. So what I want to do just to make this a little bit more beautiful is we'll just bring the filter to 0. We'll open up Flange, which is the chorus plugin. I'm going to load up a sequencer real quick, turn off tempo sync, bring it down to about 100 hertz, and then modulate the left and right channels separately. So if you're listening in stereo, you'll hear that the left and right channels are different. So this is how you get like a basic sort of chorus going. Sounds good. Let's open up a tempo or a tempong. A lot of fun. Bring it down to like 30, which is still a pretty good amount. Let's dampen that by a bit. Sort of in that Moog territory. We could even throw on a little bit of space, or I've been using a lot of coils recently, but space is very good too. Increase the diffusion, increase fuck the dampening. Let's add some detune and bring it down. We probably only need a bit because there's a lot of delays helpful. Turn it on would help. So my point here was to say, yeah, you can actually take it into sort of a beautiful territory. Right? So it doesn't have to be all Soviet brutality, right? It can actually kind of do that Moogy thing and do it very well to where you enjoy it. The thing is once you start engaging that filter and the resonance a little bit more, so I'll jump back over here so that's what I'm doing. Once you start cranking the filter, I mean, the push is crazy, right? Beautiful texture right here. I kind of stumbled upon accidentally. Mode. Cool sound, and I've never made this particular type of sound before, and it's just, that's the thing about the fucking Polivoks, baby, is it just sounds so cool. Getting tea all over myself, that's fucking wonderful. Does this have patch saving? Absolutely not. This is it. This is all you got right here. There's nothing digital about this thing. It's completely analog. For better or worse, I think I wouldn't mind version of this with patch saving, when they do the recreation. But for me, yes, I do like 2-run mode, but 1-run's good too. Yeah, just so cool. Yeah, I definitely recommend this synthesizer. Very cool synth. So let's jump back over, and so that's the sound we have going. Let's zoom in on what we have. So I've got a few different kind of layers here. I think for tonight's stream, what I'm going to do is just delete anything I don't think I'm going to use. Let's remove this. What else do we have here? We got Filterverse. I think that's all we need for this. We can get rid of the bassline. We can get rid of this automation here. So I've got some drums that I created earlier and some, just basic transitional stuff. So I've got a Ghost Hack cinematic drums loop here, which you guys can see. You can see the build up here. Just some basic transitional elements. I guess I'll solo these. I think I'll solo these. Let me zoom this down so we can try to get a good grip of some of the stuff. Using one of my favorite plugins, Valhalla Delay, to really make that drop bigger, and then duck. So the trick for this, I'm at 95 BPM. I don't know how well you can see that on the stream there. And when I'm using this particular plugin, which I use on pretty much every mix I do, I always do, if we're at like 95, I don't put the side chaining to like kind of a default like halfway. So this is how this would sound if I was just to have that. Right? Instead, I bring it so that it's on that first eighth note there. First. I think that sounds much groovier at this tempo. Tracy Harm says, what are we talking about? 4K. So a Polivoks, you could probably get one of these bad boys for just about $1,200, I think, is what they've been recently. They've been hanging around that for a bit. As far as the drums go, I'm actually using a sample pack I got recently. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick here. See what it is. In here, I think it's from Loop Cult. It's called Chronos from Loop Cult, and it's a sort of mid-tempo sample pack. So this is what the drums sound like. And there's processing done to it. I don't almost ever like how drums sound on their own. I always do some amount of EQ and compression. So in this case, I'm just using my favorite plug-in transient processor, and I'm boosting the attack quite a bit, leaving the sustain alone. So it's just adding that. So the difference here is pretty big. So you can hear the difference there. Super cool. Does this synthesizer, Wendigo asks, does this synth have a Russian polyphonic counterpart? The answer is kind of. So the RMIF Opus is a string machine polyphonic. So it's not truly polyphonic, but paraphonic, but you can play more than one note at a time. Another one would be the Maestro, which has the same filter as the Polivoks, and it's a hybrid synth, I believe. And I want to say Heinbach has a nice video on that. But what else is there? I think those are really kind of the only options. There's another one, the EMS something. Hans might know. There's one up on Reverb right now. I was looking at it today, and it's like a Polivoks, but it has an organ section in it too. Georgie, this is duophonic technically, but I don't really think of that as polyphony. You can put it into 2-ron mode, and when you have 2 rons, you can you can play more. You can play 2 notes at once. Yeah, the EMS. That's what I think it is. But I don't know if the mono section of the EMS compares to the Polivoks necessarily. I'm not a huge fan of combo synths. It's like the ARP Quadra, one of the most expensive synths in the world. My personal vote for most aesthetic synth of all time. But it doesn't do the Odyssey as well as the Odyssey, or even a Solus. It doesn't do the strings as well as the Omni. You know what I mean? Like they usually cut something out. Moog Opus might be an exception to that. Yamaha SK30 might be an exception to that. I'm trying to think of some other, if there's some, Korg Trident, I think is basically a Poly 6, but with 2 VCOs. Second VCO can only be a sawtooth wave, but also has a string section, so that would be pretty good. So Dionysian, a synth Ron Swanson would approve of. What is the quote? There's no sadness that breakfast foods cannot cure. That's very deep. I want to get a Maestro one day. Yeah, Romplers are about as far from the Polivoks as we can get. So what I'm going to do is jump back over here. I really like this sound. EMS01, Formanta EMS01. So yeah, if anybody knows about that synth, chime off in the comments and let me know how it compares to a Polivoks. I'd be curious. Hans, for you, I don't know if you answered this earlier, but do you have a synth you prefer, Soviet synth you prefer to the Polivoks? I'm just be curious about that. So what I'm going to do is just fuck around for a bit, come up with a sound, jamming over the drums, and then we'll record it. And, you know, that's how we make music here. Right? Something like that. What do you prefer about the Altair 231, Hans? I'd be super interested and might have to buy another synth if you convince me on it. I like the sound of this little thing I've come up with here. Some of this shit. Totally different type of sound, right? Very cool. And So now what I'm going to do is just jump back over here so you guys can see what I'm doing. Tomato flute. Yeah, that's a good way to describe that. Yeah, Hans does have a channel, right? Let's see here. It does it all: kick, snares, hi-hats, perks, as well as fat-ass basses. We love a fat ass on this channel. 3 oscillator. Oof, I can see how that works. It's all knob per function too. Is that the really colorful one? I think the Alita, they've had a few different versions. With 3 oscillators, do you have an LFO too, or is it like on a mini Moog where the 3rd oscillator can become a modulation oscillator? Wow, that's beautiful sounding, isn't it? So let's open up Filterverse and see if there's anything we want to do to it. I think it's pretty good, actually. Bring out some of the low end, right? Because it's a lot, and we're gonna have some sort of baseline. So just using real simple filter here. That might sound really thin now, and I suppose it is. But once we've gone in and added a baseline and stuff, that'll be different. So remove that. Now let's come up with some sort of baseline sound, right? That's what we're really going to want. So I'm going to leave this the same for a moment just so I can show you what I'm doing with Filterverse. So what we're going to do is open up a new version. I'm going to bring the filter down. Oscillator 3 is an LFO. Yeah, it's a Model D clone. That's funny. Or I was thinking of the Behringer Model D clone. That would be adorable. So what we're going to do is use a sequencer now, and we're going to bring the steps down to just maybe 2. I think I can get away with just 1. I think I can do just 1. Yeah. And we're going to make it only unipolar, right? So I'm going to modulate this with sequencer 1, right? Maybe not all the way. Maybe to like, I'm guessing like 15K or so. We just need to change the shape. Maybe I do need 2 steps. Yeah. I don't know. Whoa, I don't want any swing. In the shape, oh. Usually like, yeah, here we go. Right around D. So we can get it to do a sort of a pluck. We can add resonance. But for this type of thing, I don't necessarily know if it's necessary. Try with bandpass. Get interesting sort of pluck sounds using band reject. Add a little bit of drive. We don't need much. And now we've got a really cool bass line. And you'll hear that when we play, what's so great about using something like Filterverse is that when we play, we'll be in time. unipolar as opposed to bipolar. So if you look at the way that the modulation is happening here, it's above the cutoff point of the filter. If I turn that off, well, it changes because of the sequencer here. So, but what it could do, depending on what the sequencer shape is doing, is modulate above and below that filter frequency there. Yeah, the notch is cool. And you can blend between filter types in Filterverse. That's slightly boring. But blending in a little of that that notch filter is actually super cool. A little bit there. So now let's go into this, back to the synth, and oh, you know how to cut a promo, Hansvolt. What kind of feature does it have? Let's create more of like a sawtooth bassline thing. We'll spread the oscillators apart, but I like to have the lowest oscillator a little more going in. And one thing we can do is actually use the decay stage. So if I just mute this for a second, you can hear that I've got basically a mini Moog bass sound, but it's a lot more distorted and throaty because it's a Polivoks, but it's very similar. There's so much to this synth that's sort of like mini Moog-esque, which is again why for me, I don't necessarily feel like I need a mini Moog. I understand though why people do want them, because there's some real Moog sickos out there who need to have Moog synths deeply. But for me, I think this it gives you that sound, but you can just hear the distortion on that tail. That's like crazy to me. Flip a switch and you can add pitch vibrato when you wiggle any of the keys left and right. Holy shit. You guys probably notice that all the time I do that because I have a ring controller where you can actually do that, but that's awesome. Wendigo, that is so nice of you to say. I really appreciate it. I believe it is you guys who make this channel great. I'm just here to fuck around with some synths and have some fun, but it's really you guys in the chat, and most of the time I think the interactions that you guys are having in the chat is more interesting than what I'm doing with the synthesizer. But I suppose if I didn't have a synth in front of me, we wouldn't be all getting together every Wednesday night to check this out. But I really appreciate you, Wendigo, and I appreciate everybody who hangs out every Wednesday or whenever you can make it, when you watch the video in the future, it doesn't matter, because it all helps the channel grow. So I really appreciate you guys. Really, really, really good. But by adding in this Filterverse, it sounds really great. So jumping back over here, Oral Escape was saying, let's add a phaser, right? Let's make this phase. So we have a phaser. We actually have a bunch of different phasery type stuff inside of here, like Fractalizer is a super nested phaser, which is a little intense. It can get up to 66 peaks. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's slightly off camera here. So let's turn this on. So I don't think we're going to really notice anything until, so we're going to add another sequencer, and same thing kind of like with the chorus. This is my general like recipe for chorus, is somewhere around maybe 1.5 hertz. We'll modulate the phaser and you'll hear how this sounds. We can control the so I'm just trying to find a good sonically pleasing, orally pleasing but the big thing is when you modulate both sides independently. So when you hit this little button, you can either control the amount of difference, but I like just using it in this positive negative way because that's how the analog pedals worked. If we increase or decrease the depth, we get some really cool sounds too. So negative 100 sort of gives you this thin sound. Yeah, there's so much. This is a very non-linear synth. The thickness is just crazy, isn't it? So without the phaser, good. The phaser is just massive. So I'm actually going to dial some of it out. I think that's a little bit better. Now we can add, we could go in here, we can add something else to just give it some vibe. There's a few different things we could do. Decimate might be the way to go. So this is a new filter in Filterverse. And the way this works is it's a bit crusher, but we've got a bunch of different stuff. We got interpolation, the crush, sample and hold. I actually don't know what all of these things do, so I'm going to leave some of them kind of on their defaults, but you can hear what they sound like. And this is how we can get those sort of like talking bass sounds. That res bass sound, right? You know that song, what's it called? By Rez, her big hit song. If we bring the bit crushing down to very low rates, it just gets pretty much the gnarliest distortion imaginable. But without it, we get this sort of talking. And so, yeah, this is how we can get those sorts of res bassline sounds. Now, the way she would do it would be with another sequencer. So we can add more and more sequencers. And this gets so crazy, guys, because you could be like modulating one sequencer with another. It's Asaf takes a lot of inspiration from modular synthesis, where you can route things all over the place. So you can sort of think of this as like a little modular playground down here. But anyways, to do this sort of a thing, what I'm going to do is move it to 4 steps, and we're going to change the rate so we get kind of like 4 shelves right around C, right? And we're going to just kind of do this type of thing. So we just have these different types of, we'll get different bit crushy, vowel-y type sounds if we do something like this. Take something like this, and then we're going to modulate this, the decimator, with here. So this sounds like. So by using some bit crushing, but then bringing the dry wet way down. We get these really crazy, kind of vowel-y sorts of sounds. Right now, my CPU load on this is 0.7% of my CPU. Now, I've got a very beefy CPU, so I'm not trying to say like that's going to be the results you have on your computer. I built this computer with a custom, desire to make it strong for audio processing. But yeah, this sounds pretty good. Yes, we're in the year 2077 actually. The bit crushing is in the plugin. Yeah, so you can think of Filterverse as much more than just a filter plugin, right? Because it's going to have just so much that's going on, and we're still in the beta of this, so you could still expect another, what do we have per row? Like probably another 14 filters or so they're going to put into this thing, and that's going to be pretty crazy, like the amount that can be done with this plugin. So anyways, that's a pretty badass bassline sound. So let's go ahead and record some of this. Solo that. I haven't been watching Continuum. So you can actually use, I think the plugin's called Gatekeeper, and send audio into, well, actually, now that I think about it, you probably don't even need Gatekeeper, but you can send MIDI and all sorts of stuff. But for instance, like I could use this envelope follower and use this basically as a CV source, but I could use, instead of the input, I could use side chains or even the output, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, for sure. That's true. Wendigo. So that's like one example. You can use pitch detection, MIDI, CV, and send in stuff. So this is how you can actually use this in a modular context. I think you could hypothetically even have this as part of your modular synth rig. I don't see anything that's stopping you other than like potentially some latency. But that's accountable. You can account for that with a little bit of basically sending whatever that buffer amount is. With a beefy enough sound card, you could overcome that. Yeah. So anyways, I'm going to turn that off for now, but just listen back to this bass line here. I know it says force brass lead, but we'll just call this bass, and we'll see what we can do to make it sound really great. So what I'm doing is just adding a 3K high shelf, because 3K is like a magic number for me. especially with shelving, because you sort of approach the peak of it around 5K. 5K and up's kind of your air frequencies. So in this case, this synthesizer is not going to need a low end boost at all. If I was using a VST, I almost guarantee you I would be boosting the low end like this, but this synth simply does not need it. We might not find like a nice mid-range frequency. It's sounding a little hollow because of the high end from the decimation, and then the super low end of the analog synth. So I'm going to just try to find that. So like that 500 frequency sounds awesome. Without it, it's a little hollow. And to polish it off, we could use one of my other favorite plugins, Saturn. There's distortion in Filterverse, of course, but Saturn's really great for this. Fab Filter. And we haven't even used a sidechain compressor, so let's go ahead and use my favorite plugin, Duck. And again, we're going to bring it to out there. So we'll hear how it sounds. We really don't need a lot, probably at all. I often use settings of like 33 or 66, depending on what I'm trying to do. In this case, I like the eighth note-y sort of nature of it. So just a little bit, just to help it have a little bit more groove. Yeah, I agree, Chris. The sound on the Polivoks is very unique. I think, again, the only real issue with the Polivoks is, to me, it's very beautiful. I love the sound of distortion and stuff like that, but it's not for everybody. It might be a little too dark synth vibes for everybody out there, and I get that. A lot of the people who watch this channel are more into the music of like the 80s, right? Which is going to be a lot cleaner of a sound. But I love the darkness, I'm a fan. So we've got this kind of cool bassline thing. Without the Fab Filter, just to see if we like that sound a little less digital. I actually think I agree with you. I think it sounds a little bit better without it, and that maybe the distortion adds a little top end sizzle and compression, which makes it feel a little flatter like a VST. So I actually think I do prefer it without the Fab Filter Aquatic. So good call there. I would have missed that. Yeah, so another thing we could do inside of Parbs, to your point there, we can actually use this crossover inside of the plugin. So this is super cool. So if we are just listening to this for a second, this sets the frequency. At this point, it's at 600. I'm happy to leave it there. And so what we could do is we could increase the amount here, but decrease the high amount. So what that's going to do right now is the amount of ducking to the low end is going to be 100%, but not affecting anything above 633 hertz. Can you guys see that on stream? And actually setting that cutoff point just a little bit behind that eighth note gives it a little bit of real space for the kick drum right there. Now what I'm going to do is actually dial that back a bit because 100% is almost always too much. I want to clean up this lead a little bit. Duck is awesome by Devious Machines, and right now because the kick is 4 to the floor, I'm just using it kind of in its default mode. But like if you like me enjoy breakbeats, you can change trigger mode here to the sidechain or even MIDI if you want to control it by MIDI, which is super cool. Parb says I'd run a low cut on the bass and boost it around 50 hertz. You could do that. I don't generally do any sort of bass boosting. This is like a tip from Chris Lord Alge. I heard him say once, and I found it to be true that when you boost certain frequencies with bass, you sort of get weird, some notes come forward more than others, because whether you boost at 50 or 60 or 70 or 80, those are different note values, right? So you'll get certain notes that really pop in one direction or another. And, you know, that can be cool depending on what you're trying to do. But for me, a lot of times I usually don't, if anything, I'll cut. If I have a certain note that's like really sticking out, I might do a narrow cut on that note. But otherwise, generally speaking, especially with a synth, it's going to be pretty balanced. I wouldn't do a lot of boosting. I would just cut everything else. If I had to, like if I need to boost the bass, a lot of times I'll take a high shelf and cut everything out because I want to leave that bass pretty pure and not, it's not that I'm that worried about phase issues, but it's like, let's just not even go there too much. Yeah. So, yeah, Omni 2 would sound great right now. Have like a nice string machine-y type sound. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Paletta Payaso ad. I don't know what that is. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, on the MS-20, for instance, right? I love to boost with a high pass filter and use the resonance there to sort of create a but it feels like a really wide Q on the MS-20. I don't know if that's true. It might be completely not true, but it feels really wide. And it kind of just like the way that the MS-20's filters work are almost like EQs. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, massaging the low end is a thing I try not to fuck with too much. I try to get the kick drums and the snares into alignment. And then after that, I'm not that trying to fuck with it too much, you know? I'm going to use a free EQ plugin that I like quite a bit. Slick EQ, Tokyo Dawn Labs. I've paid for the upgraded versions of all of their plugins. But this is a very good plugin. Let me see if I can increase the graphics here. Yeah, just to make it easier for you guys to see on stream. Yeah, that looks nice. So this is sounding mid-rangey to me. So what I can do is select this mid cut thing and just pull some of the mid-range out. And so it's like a tilt filter. I think this might be the most awesome amount of a track I've ever made with 2 synth layers. So why don't we take it further? I kind of want to take the this lead and do a little bit more to it. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to load another Filterverse in, and we're going to get a little crazy. So I'm playing an E flat minor, right? So I'm going to write in E sharp. So I'm going to just write in E sharp. Well, let me see if I could do that. What do I have to do? E sharp 1 maybe? E sharp 1? E1? What is it? I know there's a way to do it. Done it before. B? There's a way to actually pick the right note. I think I'm just blanking on it right now. 0 cents. And then -12. Oh, maybe I put it in here. E1. There we go. So it just dropped it right into, let's see if I do E0. Sorry, E0. Huh. C2? No, that's not it either. Let's try C2 here. Yeah, that kind of did it. Let's do E. What would it be? E flat 2? There we go. Okay, sorry, it took a second. Took me a second to remember how to do this. Yeah. With a passion for all things analog, Payetta 2021 starts a project to bridge the artist's classic music theory background with the revolution of house music. Huh. I don't know what that is at all. Wendigo says, you should send this to Puff Daddy. Every time he gets ready to go to the showers when he's in prison. Wendigo, I don't know what that means. So what I'm going to do is pick one of these really cool different kinds of filters. Oh, I didn't even use the vowel filter. That would have been fun. We're going to use, what is it? We're going to use the Robocomb. This is I'm a fan of this one. I used it a lot in one video, but why don't we try a different one? Why don't we try the comb strings is an interesting thing. So the idea here is this is physical modeling synthesis built into Filterverse, which might sound crazy at first, but you could hear how it's the resonance is actually creating this sort of like piano-like sound. And now if we use we need to use a meta knob, and we need to put it all the way up, and we're going to add a little bit of glide to it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a random sequencer here, and we're going to use just like 2 octaves. right? And we're going to quantize this to a minor scale. Maybe we'll use melodic minor pentatonic. That's what I'm looking for. And we're going to modulate the meta knob 100% with random 2, and then modulate the cutoff with the meta knob 100%. I think this will work. Maybe we could just quantize it here and skip that step. Let's go for minor pentatonic. Yeah, let's just try it. Just modulating it directly with random 2. We're getting this sort of sample and hold type sound. If I solo it, you won't be able to hear my voice, but you can really hear what's going on. So I'm just going to do that real quick. So I'm going to use that with a pretty good amount of resonance, but just dial the dry wet back. Well, Machine Storm, if you do get Filterverse, just use my affiliate link. You get 15% off. Links in the description. I appreciate it. You know, it lets Polyverse know that I'm, you know, actually selling some of their fucking products. I think Filterverse is awesome. I wouldn't, again, I said earlier, this isn't a sponsored stream. I'm using their plugins. All of the plugins I'm using is because they're the plugins I use. And I'm really happy that I get to make videos for Filterverse on their channel. So I guess you could say I'm biased in that sense, but they just really make a great plugin. I've turned down many times more companies that have asked me to do videos or to pay me to do videos for them. And with Polyverse, I just thought that they had something really great. Most importantly, it sounded great. And then second most importantly, they're really cool guys, actually. I think I've talked about this before, but you know, most of the time when you are hooked up with a company, it's like through a third party person who connects influencers. I hate being called that, but influencers to the company, and you're just speaking to like a middle agent or something. But the Polyverse guys, they'll call me up on a Zoom call and be like, hey, so what do you think would be a cool idea for a new video or something like that? And we'll chat and we'll talk about it. They'll answer my nerdy questions about how filters work and all of that stuff. So super cool company, really nice people, and really awesome product, and it's just getting better. So I think it's a great time to get in with that public beta, and you might as well get 15% off if you use my code. Enough selling out for them. I don't even sell out for myself enough. Like and subscribe to the fucking video. Oh God, I'm losing control. Yeah. So that's enough about that. Let's, I really like that sound. I want to get a little spacier though. So what I'm going to do is modulate the pan. I'm going to use a new random sequencer, and I'm going to use, again, an eighth note rate here. And I think I can just use it just like that and then modulate this with a random 3. And then what I'm going to do is go into the routing and see if I can do kind of like a fun routing. Let's try out this vowel filter and see what that sounds like. So now we've really taken that lead to a brand new place. Sounds really awesome. RBass is a good plugin. I used to use that a lot. Yeah. Hey, a Voyager, I think, is a really cool synth. And actually, those things have held their value. They've stood the test of time. People love them. Frequently, because I like searching vintage synths by decade. And man, there's like, I don't know, in the 2000s to 2010, around that era, there's like nothing people care about except the Voyager. So I think that's going to be, I think it already is a modern classic, but I think it's, I don't think it needs to get certified by me, but I think the Voyager is a very cool synth. And yeah. So I'm a big fan. Yeah, nothing wrong with just a compressor, noise gate, and EQ. That'll get it done. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Synclaviers are expensive. I don't know what they go for nowadays. I never see them for sale, like in any sort of reasonable sense. So, if we want to clean this bass up just a little bit more, another little trick we can do. We already have this sequencer going here, right? So what we can do is go into the filter output and modulate this. And we're just going to use, what is that, sequencer 1? We're going to give it a little boost. And what that's going to do, you can see what it's doing there. It's just adding a little bit. And we'll just bring the volume down a bit. And so now the volume is going to get modulated by that sequencer as well. So it's just going to clean it up a little volume-wise, add a little bit more to the pluck. If we do too much, it's going to lose all of its ass, you know? Like here, it just sounds like the transients, but none of the meat. So let's bring it down. But it's a little bit punchier. Really cool sound. awesome way that Filterverse changed that sound. And here's the sound without Filterverse, just so you could hear that. You know, it sounds good, but once you add Filterverse in, AFD, if you want to throw some vocals on this, it's here. I'm gonna have it saved. I'm just making something fun for a 2-hour live stream. But yeah, it's pretty good, and it could use maybe a bridge or something like that. But it's a pretty sexy little groover for not being too many elements. And of course we could sequence this out a little bit. And have this, start with just the lead, right? Let's go ahead and what I'm going to do is just kind of sequence out this whole thing a little bit more, just so I have a little bit more space. I think it'll sound better with a little of this action. There we go, and then we'll just do something like this. So we have more of a song now, right? So it's a little bit more sequenced out. So I think I've done it so that everything will work. I just copy this automation here. Sometimes I don't copy everything over correctly. There we go. And then what is this? This is duck. Bypassed. We'll move that over there. Right, so we got... Yeah, that's right. So we have the song, I think... Ooh, I think I fucked the drums up over here. Look at that. See this little crossfade? Just get rid of that guy and drag another one in here. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, that looks right. Yeah. Let's see here. I'm glad to hear that this channel encourages you to turn to those keyboards more often, Tracy. I think there's a lot there that sometimes I think it's easy to kind of get lost and not be having as much fun with these guys as people get sucked into one of two things. Either they get sucked into just being on the computer and plugins, and that's great. I love that. but there is something about having a physical piece of history that I quite enjoy or find inspiring, more so than just the hands-on part of it. I think a lot of people enjoy the tactile thing. I'm not as tactile. I'm more into the sound. But I also think there's people who get way too into the gear and then they're not making music. So a mixture of both is good. Dynamic EQs has changed the way I mix. I try to avoid multi-band crossovers at all costs. I'm neutral on multi-band crossovers. I don't know that I care about them. They might be a problem, but I'm also not precious with anything. I can pretty much hear when drums are out of phase, and I'll fix them if there's a problem. Because I don't know if this is obvious to everybody, but a dynamic EQ is essentially a multi-band compressor. They're doing very similar things. And depending on how it's wired internally, it might literally be a multi-band compressor. It might not be between the two. Yeah, but it depends. There's different ways to set up compressors, like it, whether or not the filters are in series or parallel. Prime User says, with a memory Moog, the inflation, 5,083 is the equivalent to 15 grand or 16 grand in 2024. A difference of $11,000. However, that's about what memory Moogs go for nowadays. So essentially, it's just kind of maintained its price all of these years. And I would argue it's done so largely because they're sort of rare and they break down easy. I don't think a memory Moog is necessarily worth that, although I would consider it at some point. Yeah. 800 on a Flame Mander, which is a filter sequence synth, and about to drop 2K on an RME. Ooh, 2,000's a lot. I have an RME, but I definitely didn't pay 2K for it. I just used the Digiface USB, and I'm quite happy with that. But that doesn't, you have to have a preamp for it. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. It's the only polyphonic Moog, right? Until the Moog 1, and now the Moog Muse, which Aquatic has coming. So I'm really excited to hear what Aquatic does with it. Right. Well, phase shift in and of itself, though, isn't a problem. It's phase shift in parallel that's the problem. So anytime you're using multiband compression or EQ, it's introducing phase shift, but that's not an issue until you have like a mix amount, right? Because then you'll hear that phase. But if the mix is all the way up, that's good. And something that not all or even most dynamic or multiband compressors have, but I wish they did, is just like an internal mix amount that acts like a mix, but what it really does is it just adjusts the range of the EQ all the way down to 0. That way you can dial it back if you feel like it's gotten a little too pushed or whatever, but it's not so crazy. Oh, that's awesome. Proud of you for selling. And we should celebrate selling gear as much as we celebrate buying it. Yeah, I'm really excited for you, Aquatic. So with that, I've got a little loop here. I think this is enough for me to play out for the outro. And so I'm going to just go ahead and call it for the evening because it's already after 11. But I really appreciate you guys for hanging out with me all the way through to the end of the stream. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe to the channel. It does a whole lot. Coming up on 13,000 subscribers, which is crazy. But most people, I get about 50,000 unique viewers a month, which is mind-boggling to me. So most of those people are not subscribed, obviously. So if you haven't yet, I'm probably not talking to you guys, the chat. I'm probably talking more to, if you're watching this video in the future, please like and subscribe. It makes a big difference. Continue to be excellent, guys, and I will see you next week.